Hello guys, welcome to the third part of Angular-10 series of tutorials. In this tutorial, we'll create our first Angular application using Angular CLI. Creating a new Angular application is very simple using Angular CLI. We need to enter the command ng space new space project name. In our case, it is hello world. The internal functioning that happens when we type and enter ng space new space hello world can be divided into two steps. In the first step, CLI creates a new workspace with an initial Angular application with the default project structure. In step 2, the Node Package Manager reads the package.json file which manages the dependencies of our project and install the dependencies into your project, specifically a folder called Node Modules. After all installations are done, it will generate package.lock.json file. What is package.lock.json file and why it is generated after all installations are done? We'll discuss that in a while. Before that, let's flip into Visual Studio Code and generate our first Angular application. I have created a folder called Angular. I'm going to create all the projects in the same folder in subsequent tutorials as well. Let us open the Visual Studio Code from this Angular folder. To do that, we need to open the terminal and type code space dot. It will open the Visual Studio Code within that Angular folder. Let's enter the command and create hello world application. CLI will provide a couple of interactive questions. The first one is, would you like to add Angular routing? Let us go with yes. And the other one is the kind of style sheet format we would like to use in our project. Let's go with CSS. As soon as we are done with this prompt, CLI will execute the first step to create the default structure of the project. CLI created the default structure, and if you notice, now it is executing the second step. Currently, in the structure, we don't have node modules and package-lock.json. It will take a while to install all these dependencies. Now all the dependencies are installed into the node modules and package-lock.json file is generated. Let's have a look at both package.json and package-lock.json. Let me open package.json and package-lock.json side by side. Package.json defines the required dependencies and the respective versions using semantic versioning, whereas the package-lock.json captures the exact dependency tree installed at any point of time. Make sure you don't change package-lock.json directly. That's being handled automatically by npm. npm reflects changes made to package.json to package-lock.json and keeps it up to date. However, this only happens if you use npm CLI to make changes. If you manually change the package.json, don't expect package-lock.json to update. So always use CLI commands like install, uninstall to update the dependencies. Before getting into the further details, let us build and launch the application in the browser. To do that, we need to open the terminal and get into the folder hello world and type ng space serve. Once the project is compiled successfully, we'll receive a message from the webpack stating that webpack compiled successfully. The web server starts at the port 4200 by default. Let's flip to the browser and type the URL http localhost 4200. We can see the default welcome view of Angular application being displayed. With this, our first Angular application is working perfect by executing just a couple of commands, thanks to Angular CLI. Before getting into the details of how this application is working, let's understand the architecture and building blocks of Angular. Modules are the major building blocks of Angular application. Angular apps are modular in nature. Every module represents a related area of an application. For example, let's take university as an Angular application. It can contain modules like student module, professor module, library module, and so on. Depending on the need, we can inject one module into the other using export and import. Every Angular application consists of one module called root module. By convention, it is called as app module, which will be generated by Angular CLI. A module in turn consists of collection of components, services, directives, and pipes. Components represents a logical piece of code in Angular applications, whereas services handles the business logic of our application. We'll discuss about directives and pipes in our upcoming tutorials. Let's have a look at components. A component represents a portion of view on the web browser. For example, we can have a component for header, footer, side nav, and the main content. Like app module, every Angular application contains at least one component called root component. By convention, we call it as app component. All other components will be nested into this app component. Each component contains HTML template to reference a view in the browser and the class to control that particular view. With this information, let's flip to the Visual Studio Code and see how Angular control flows when you enter HTTP localhost 4200. Let's dive into some of the important files in the project structure and see how control flows. Angular.json is the file which has various properties and configurations of our project. This is the file which is first referred by the build to look all the paths and configurations to check where is main file. Under the build section, you can see the options objects. It has the reference to the main.ts, which tells the builder to start the app from there. Let's open main.ts file in src folder. This file acts as an entry point to the application, and main.ts helps in creating the browser environment for the application to run. This is done by platform browser dynamic. After this, main.ts calls the function bootstrap module of app module, which tells the builder to bootstrap or kickstart the app module. Let's open app module in src app module.ts. This module created with the ng module decorator, which has the declarations of all the components which we are going to create within the app module. We also have the import section where we can import other modules and use in our app. And this app module bootstraps or kickstarts app component from here. The app component is in app component.ts file. This is a file which interacts with the HTML of the web page and serves it with the data. The component is made by using @component decorator, which is imported from @angular/core. Notice this component has a selector called app-root, which is like custom HTML tag which we can use to call this component. This selector app-root is used in index.html file, which in turn displays the view in the browser. And this is how Angular flow works. We'll see some of the basics of Angular in upcoming tutorial.